How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to In with Denoux featuring Jordan and Gio. It has been a couple weeks. I really do apologize to everyone that's been waiting and looking for an episode. I really do apologize for putting out so late that I wasn't going to be doing episodes for a couple of weeks. Honestly, I just kept forgetting to let everybody know on socials. I had let some people know talking directly, but I didn't put it up on social, so I really do apologize for that. I have been busy, and I also just was dealing with some personal stuff. As you guys know, the last year and a half has been super difficult for me, and I'm doing much better, but everything kind of just resurfaced recently in some weird ways, and so I've just been kind of dealing with that, and I felt like I needed to take a little bit of a break from the camera. So I really do appreciate the patience from everybody that was waiting for an episode. And I really do appreciate those of you who were checking in. Hey, where's the episode this week? Where's the episode this week? And I really do appreciate that, because I have loved doing this podcast for you all. And we are slowly growing. The last couple months, we've tripled our subscribers on YouTube. And so I know that from talking to people and learning from other content creators that being persistent and that growth will keep coming. And so I'm really excited for that. And honestly, it's become a thing where this is just therapeutic for me. And so it's more so for that and to try to help people than to grow. But I would love to grow. And so if you're watching, please like, comment, share, subscribe as always. If you're watching on YouTube, please leave a comment below. That will help us grow. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, leave us a rating and a review. That will help us out a lot. And also, you guys have been seeing me solo a lot the last couple months, and I hope that will change here in the next coming weeks and months. But I'm going to stop saying next week we're going to have somebody else on, because it's just been hard to synchronize schedules right now and things like that. But I will promise you guys, from here on out, I will do my best to have an episode ready every single week, whether it's just me, whether it's me and a guest, whether it's me and Gio, me and Jordan. But I just want to make sure that Jordan has the time he needs with his family right now. And so we'll figure out, when he's able to record and things of that nature. But I definitely want him to be there for his family in this new chapter in their lives. And so I'm really happy for him to have that time away just to be with his family. But I'm going to touch base with him and try to see if we can get a schedule together. And then me and Gio have had a really hard time synchronizing our schedules as well. So, but they are doing well. Pray for them. Like me, they have struggles in their life as well. And, Gio's kind of talked openly on the podcast of having a really difficult couple years as well. So please be praying for him. And, he's doing fine, but, he just has a lot on his plate as well. So, be praying for me. I have a lot of moving things going on, things I'm figuring out. Am I going to be here? Am I going to be moving? And so I'm kind of waiting to hear on some things. And so be praying for me. And this episode, guys, I don't even know. I had some plans, but the big announcement that I wanted to say and then kind of just talk about the last year a little bit. And so I don't know how long this episode will be. It might be short. It's definitely not going to be super long. But I had some planned things, but I kind of put them on the back burner, because if you are watching this on the day it comes out, Tuesday, I waited to put this out Tuesday instead of Monday as normal, because Tuesday, June 2nd, will be our official 1-year anniversary of the podcast. We released last year on June 2nd, the very first episode, which was entitled, hold on, it just blanked out of my mind. It was entitled The Lost Art of Connection. Sorry about that. And so, man, I just was thinking back about a year. It doesn't feel like we've been doing this for a year. And I'm so grateful for those of you who have encouraged this, who have followed along, who have been guests on the podcast. A few of you, Gio being added on about halfway through the year of doing the podcast, and he was a guest prior. And so I really just wanted to say thank you and just vamp a little bit about the last year. And I really do want to encourage those of you who maybe are new listeners and you haven't gone back to the beginning of the podcast. One, if you listen to the later episodes, they're probably much more clear and distinct. Maybe not, who knows, but I haven't really gone back to listen to the first few episodes, and maybe they're terrible. I'm not really sure. But I would love for people to start from the beginning, just to get the essence of the journey of why we were doing this. And I'm going to re-explain And also just kind of talk about some learning points, some things I want to do moving forward. And as always, I am always open to suggestions and things you guys want to hear and want to learn about. As you guys know, I love digging into the scriptures and teaching and breaking down things that maybe are complicated and making them simpler for people to understand. I think working with teenagers much of my adult life and learning how to kind of bring it to a younger age level, to break it down to where whether you're 10 or whether you're 90, you can understand what it is that I'm explaining about the scriptures. And so I really enjoy doing that. And so if there's a topic or a passage of scripture, a story maybe that you just love, that you want to hear a different perspective on, something that's confusing maybe and you don't understand, if you're struggling with your faith based on certain things in the scriptures or things happening in your life, I would love to really tackle those things and pointed towards our listeners, and some topics coming from you all would be something that I really want to push more. I feel like I haven't done a good job of really putting it out there on socials, of asking what you guys want to hear. I ask on here sometimes, but putting it out on Instagram and TikTok and all of those things. So in this upcoming year, I'm really going to try to do better of getting y'all's input and putting things out on Instagram. So if you see a story or if you see a post on Instagram from us, please make sure to read it. You know, I know a lot of times for me, I just kind of skip through the stories and don't even really know what it is that I'm looking at or seeing, especially if it's like a poll or a question or something like that. So if you see something like that, a poll or a question from us, take a second, stop at that story and answer it for us. That would be huge. That would be super, super helpful. But I did just want to tell all of, if you're a new listener or even if you've been listening from the beginning and, it's been a long time since we kind of described the goal of the podcast, the meaning of the name, how Jordan and I met, how Gio and I met. I don't know if I'll go through all that, but, we started off really with Jordan and I when it was just him and I. We talked several times before we recorded, before we posted anything. And I really want to get back to doing this because before we started, we filmed about 4 or 5 episodes so that we had a backlog of episodes, so that we wouldn't miss a Monday releasing an episode. So we talked a lot about what we wanted the podcast to be and what we decided on. And we might have veered a little bit from this kind of structure, but it's still the main goal of the podcast is that we wanted it to be spiritual. We wanted it to be real and raw, but we also wanted it to be fun, and we didn't want to shy away from difficult things. So we kind of had this rhythm of doing like 3 either spiritual or serious episodes and then doing a palate cleanser where we did something fun. We talked about sports, we talked about film or TV shows, or, we did themed episodes around holidays for Christmas and things of that nature. And so we kind of had that rhythm where we would do 3 kind of serious or spiritual episodes and then 1 palate cleanser to where you guys could just relax with us and have fun with us and laugh with us or argue about sports or whatever it was. And so I do want to get back to having those episodes that are a little bit more chill so that you guys can have fun with us. And if you guys don't want those, if you just always want biblical content or things that are happening in the world and a Christian perspective on the things that are happening in the world, which we've really tried to do, even when we've talked politics or difficult things that have happened in the world in terms of shootings and death and politics and things that have just been really divisive in our country always, but especially over the last handful of years to 10 years or so. We've tried to tackle those things. We've asked hard questions of each other, Jordan and I and Gio as well. And so that's what the goal of the podcast is. We want it to be spiritual. We want it to be real and raw. We want it to be brave. We do not want to be cowardly and shy away from topics that we feel like, as Christians, we should have a perspective on, or at least speak to from a Christian perspective. And we want to do those things. And also, the name of the podcast, although yes, it was my idea to do a podcast, I was going to do it by myself and then decided to do it with Jordan. So we stuck with the name that I intended for the podcast of In with Denoux. And although it is, yes, like you're here with me, Chase Denoux, but also, as I explained when I was a kid, my dad told me if someone's having a difficult time pronouncing your last name, our last name, to tell them it's like out with the old, in with Denoux. And so a lot of the podcast too is, I know for me, there was things, I started this journey right after, 3 of the hardest things that have happened to me in my life. And a lot of trauma came from that and still dealing with a lot of it. And I contemplated talking about all those things on this episode, and I kind of decided to steer away from that for a lot of different reasons. And maybe I'll get into it more in the future, but some of it just for respect things. Like, I don't want to seem like I'm airing other people's business, although a lot of it is my business, and I've done my best to try to deal with it the best I can, but I've hit roadblocks into some of it. I feel like it will never be dealt with, unfortunately. And so part of me is like, if I've done my best to try to resolve it, and if speaking out on the podcast is my way of, having therapy, then maybe that's my right to do so. I don't know. But I just felt like I didn't want to do that right now, and I might never do that. But I only say that because I've had a lot of people that are listeners, or maybe that I don't know quite as well, that don't know everything that's gone on the last year, kind of ask me and ask if I'm going to share on the podcast about this past year. And so I've contemplated it, and, I didn't want to do it on this episode, but in the future I may talk about those things. But I will tell you some things that I've learned through it. And I do want to say, and I don't say this bitterly, it's just something that I learned, because I feel like sometimes this is people use this in a manipulative way, in my opinion, especially Christians. And not intentionally, but I think sometimes when something happens between two people, especially two Christians, I think lots of times people use like, we're Christians and like we can learn from all situations, so it really isn't that bad that this happened to you. I think it's super manipulative. And I think that we use it far too much as Christians to say, like, you can learn through, of course, you can like find things to learn through a situation. But I think in my case, and in a lot of cases, I feel like that is used to be like, you go deal with it over there, and this person's not going to take any accountability at all. And so I think that is a hard lesson that I've had to learn, is that I feel like I thought a lot back through like our church hurt series, and I want to revisit that because I've actually learned a lot more about church hurt and the things from my past, talking to my sister a lot, but also the new church experience that I'm in now. I've just learned a lot that I feel like, I had these thoughts and these feelings based off of my upbringing in the church that I went to. And I do want to say, because I know most of the people that listen to this are from the church that I grew up to. And I still feel like I am a part of that church too, by the way. Like, I just happen to go to another church that isn't affiliated right now. But I want to say before I like move forward is that I'm so grateful for the church that I grew up in, the church that I was at in college, the church, Broward Church, obviously I love, like, that's my home. I love that church and the people there outside of my family more than anything. I love, obviously, God, that church, and my family more than anything. And so this is not me saying like I regret or don't think you should go to that church or anything like that. I just want to make that very clear. But I have learned some things that I feel like my thinking was just a little skewed about certain things. And I think a lot of it is things like that, things that I feel like, and again, when I say this, I know God works through everything that you go through, good and bad. So I want to make that clear too. But I think there's certain things that people are like, oh, that was supposed to happen to you so that God could teach you this. And I'm like, no, like, that didn't need to happen. Like, I'm learning it because I was wronged in this area. And there's sometimes where you mess up. And obviously I had faults and things that have happened in the last couple of years, but I do feel like sometimes people use that just so that they or their friend or whatever can just move forward without taking accountability for anything. And it's like, oh, you go over there with God and you go over there with God, and you just learn about these shared experiences that you had together, when it's like, no, that shouldn't be how that works. And so I just am learning that I feel like there's a lot of things that were either misinterpreted, I feel like, or just like not even scriptural at all. It just kind of sounds spiritual. And I've learned that too, is that I feel like a lot of people use spiritual lingo in order to not take accountability for their actions. And I'm sure I've done that too in my past, but I feel like I've dealt with that a lot over the past year and a half. And, the other thing too is that some of the people that were involved in the things that have happened to me the last couple of years, at least at one point, were listeners. I highly doubt they still are listeners. But if you're one of those people and you feel some type of way about me saying this stuff, as I have been for the last year and a half, 2 years, you have my number, or you know how to get it. And I'm happy to talk, and I've been happy to talk for a number of years. So I'm not saying anything that I've already tried to communicate and have been a wall put up or whatever. But if you feel some type of way about me saying this and think I'm talking about you, one, I might not be talking about you, but two, I'm always happy to talk if someone has an issue with me. So you have my number, or you can message me. And some of you might not be able to message me anymore on social media, but you have my phone number. So happy to talk if anyone out there is listening and feels some type of way and thinks I'm talking about them. And if the shoe fits, then call me or text me. And genuinely, I say that lovingly. I'm not trying to like diss anybody or make anyone feel any type of way. I just feel like, I waited and tried not to air things. And so I just and doing this for me, like I said, this podcast has been therapeutic. And so I'm going to be more real about the things that I've gone through. And I'm not going to put anyone else's business out there or put names on anything. But I just want y'all to know that I want to share these things so that if someone else is going through similar things, and again, I'm not going to say specifics, but if anyone's ever felt the way like I feel like, man, I feel like someone's spinning this scripture to manipulate me, or, telling me just to go off with God and work it out between you and God, and this person is ignoring, actions that they did against you or whatever, then maybe you can find some peace in the things that, I share moving forward. But yeah, I just also wanted to, thank Zoe Church and the people at Zoe Church, the family that, I've built there at Zoe Church. I'm super, super grateful for them. I feel like, and again, this is not a slight to anybody. But yeah, I feel like I've known them for a handful of months. And I feel like most of the people at that church have been more supportive to me than people I've known for years. But I definitely do want to say that I'm grateful for the people that I have known for a long time that have been there for me. Obviously, my family, Tawan, right, has been like, solid for me, always checking in on me. I'm super grateful for him. Obviously, Jordan and Gio. But honestly, after that, it's like, a lot of people that are friends of mine that, don't consider themselves Christians, that have checked in on me and made sure I'm good, that have sympathized with the things that I'm going through, that have called me late at night when I was struggling with self-harm stuff and crazy thoughts and having crazy dreams. And, Jordan, the first few months when I was going through all this, was like, checking in with me every night and calling me until 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning just to make sure I'm good, that my head is clear, my head is on straight, to pray with me, to just talk, to listen. And so I'm super grateful for him and his wife, Emily, and Gio's been there for me too, just to call whenever I needed it, or to send me a voice note, or even just sending me like videos and being on the podcast. So I'm super grateful for him, and obviously my sister and my parents and things like that. So, my sister, I can say the same things, like was checking in, calling me at night, making sure I was good, flew out here when she was going through a lot of stuff just to make sure I was good and spend some time with me. So yeah. And again, I know this episode is kind of like a vent session, but I just wanted to let y'all know what this last year has been a little bit like for me. And I say that all to say that, this podcast has definitely been like a safe haven in therapy, and to be able to record, especially when I'm on here with Gio and Jordan, but to be able to edit and hear what we had to say and make clips for y'all, but also just to meet random people through TikTok mainly, and to try to help people learn how to read the Bible, or help people try to figure out why the scriptures don't come alive for them, or that they believe in God, but the scriptures don't feel like they're alive, or, to them, and to try to help people with that, whether it's to make an episode specifically tailored to certain questions that I've gotten on TikTok, or just to have kind of DM chats with people on TikTok, trying to help them the best that I could. And so I still really do have a goal of meeting more people that myself, Gio, and Jordan don't know, and studying the Bible with them, helping them become a Christian, or come back to God, whatever the case may be, wherever they are in their journey. So that is still a big goal for me. I want to have a lot more guests on. I plan on having Brandon, who leads Zoe Church, him and his wife Laura leads Zoe Church. So, I'm trying to get Brandon on. Another sister at the church, Caitlin, if you're listening, shout out. We still got to record. And so, yeah, I just want to have more guests. I want to have y'all on, any of y'all that, feel comfortable being on camera and speaking, and have something they want to share, or share your testimony with us, or share about a difficult trial that you've come through that maybe could help somebody else, or share your favorite scripture or story from the Bible with us. I think just hearing different voices and hearing different avenues and opinions are great. Some of the most watched and also feedback episodes where I got the most feedback were guests, Iman coming on and her sharing her story and, her journey to New York and what brought her there and the things she's working on with Made to Create was so great. And, to have Karina on and to see her depth and knowledge of the scriptures and love for God and love for people and, her willingness not to just go by the status quo, but really dig in the scriptures and have her own convictions and thoughts on what are the scriptures trying to tell us? What did Jesus want for us as leaders, but also just as followers of Christ if we're not leading other people in the church, but how to be the best Christian and disciple that we can be in our workplaces, at church, for the younger generations below us, for the older generations that maybe need, to have a little bit of different thinking, but also for us to learn from the older generation and the younger generation as well. And I feel like Karina embodies that. She is someone that is bold and not afraid to speak her mind and teach other people, but she's also humble to hear what other people have to say. Because I think she got to where she is by listening to other people. And, a saying that's very popular, obviously, is like taking the meat and spitting out the bones. Like Karina does that. Like she learns from other people, but then she hears something that she's like, I don't know if I agree with that. I'm like, and she'll say something. She's not going to let you just walk away with something that's potentially dangerous or potentially wrong, just flat out wrong. But she's also going to hear other people out and be humble to say, maybe I'm wrong about thinking about this. And so I was grateful for that episode of her calling out some things she thought I was wrong about in an episode. And when I say wrong, like misinterpreted from the scriptures, but also just making sure that my language is careful. Like a few of the things that I was saying where I was speaking generally that might not be true for all. And I was kind of encasing things that maybe shouldn't have been involved. And so I appreciated her for that. And then obviously Gio, who was a guest and now is one of the co-hosts, having him on. And I think the most watched episodes were the guest episodes, but then also, which I guess technically was a guest episode before Gio was officially on the podcast, was the When Church Hurt series. A lot of people, I still have people, that come to the podcast because of those episodes that they find on YouTube, or, people that I know that haven't listened to the podcast. Those are like the first episodes they listen to. I don't know if that was the first episodes Karina listened to, but I know she listened to those, and that's when she kind of hit me up, and her and I talked and reconnected. And a month or two after that is when she hopped on to be a guest. So I would love more of that, man. Like if anyone is listening to this and you're like, man, I would love to share my story. I would love to share, this hard time that I went through that I know other people are going through or have gone through and might need help, or just sharing about what you're passionate about in the scriptures. And also, honestly, if you just want to be on for a fun episode, and want to talk about sports or movies or things of that nature, I'm happy to have anybody on as long as it's what you want to talk about is appropriate, obviously. So, but yeah, I'm just so grateful for y'all. And I'm sure there was a lot of things that I wanted to say and planned to say. I didn't take any notes. I kind of just wanted this to be, I wasn't trying to wing it. I thought about a lot of this stuff, but I didn't want it to be scripted because I wanted y'all to feel my heart and my emotion of, the things that I'm going through, the anger and sadness and confusion and frustration that I'm still feeling. Obviously, has probably come out in this episode, but I'm learning that, my thoughts and my emotions and the things that I've gone through, like that they don't need to be polished. I think I'm someone who I'm very careful with my words, and I want to continue to be careful with my words. But I do feel like I'm going to use the word conditioned, whether it be through some of the people that I've dealt with the last couple of years, through church growing up or whatever, to not just be polished in moments where I'm supposed to be polished, preaching a sermon or doing a lesson or having D time maybe with someone that's younger than me and I'm trying to teach them. Like in those moments, I need to be polished. But I think oftentimes, for whatever reason, and I'm sure that obviously this is not just a me thing, but I feel like the last couple of years, like it was allowed for people to say some kind of crazy things about me and my character and what I had, accused of doing certain things that I feel like is just false. But then when I tried to say, hey, but okay, like I disagree with that and I would like to have a conversation about it. But what about this, and what about like this was said and now this is being said, and so I felt like when I tried to come back and defend myself or just try to state the truth, that it was like, no, 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 no. You can't feel that way. Like, it can only be felt towards you. It's how I felt a lot through the last couple years. And I'm kind of learning, like, and honestly, I feel like that, they probably disagree, but I've gotten a lot of advice. I've prayed, and if y'all know me well, y'all know that if you bring something to me with something I've done, if you feel like I've wronged you, obviously everybody has moments where they get defensive. So I'm not saying like I've never been defensive or whatever, but I'm someone that's willing to listen and willing to change and willing to do my best. But I'm also someone that like you got to tell me. And if I know something's wrong, I will drop everything to try to fix it. That is like who I am. And I'm not going to let people try to make me feel like that's not who I am or that I had not done that in certain situations, because it's just false. So basically what I'm trying to say is that when I'm sharing about my feelings and my emotions, I'm not going to be polished. Like, I'm just going to say what I feel. And when I say that, I don't mean that I'm just going to spout off and say whatever thought comes to my mind. But if it's mine and if it's real, if it's true, I'm going to say it the way that I'm saying it and feeling it in a respectful manner, whether it's a one-on-one conversation or an episode like this. So yeah, again, I'm sure there's a lot more things that I wanted to share. And as I kind of ramble and rant, I'll probably think of some things. But something that I did want to share that's been super helpful for me, and I need to be more consistent on it because I've kind of dropped off recently. But something I started doing kind of randomly, to be honest. Like, I feel like, I don't know if it was just random and coincidence or if it's the spirit that put it on my heart or my mind. But I've been journaling, and what I've started doing, and I've shared this with some of you privately, what I've started doing is before I journal, I'll sit and I think and I figure out, and obviously we can be feeling more than one emotion at a time, obviously, but I try to think of the emotion that is dominating that moment. Like, what is it? Am I angry? Am I sad? Am I happy? Am I envy? Whatever it may be. But generally speaking, like angry, confused, sad, or happy, like generally those four. And I like color code my journaling. So like, for example, if I'm like, man, I feel really angry right now, then I like journal in red. If I am feeling sad, like I'll journal in blue, and so on and so forth. And what it's helped me do and helped me figure out this year is I can look back, on my previous journaling days throughout the week and be like, man, there's a lot of red. I've been angry, like, and I don't like being angry. Genuinely, I hate being angry. And it helps me kind of regulate, like, okay, I need to bring this to God. Like, okay, God, I'm angry. And sometimes I don't even know why, but I'm angry. Sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't, and that's okay too. But just learning that, that can help pull me out of a state when I'm like, man, there's too much anger in my life right now. I need to work on this. So that's really helped me and kind of seen like where I've been like this throughout the year, right? Like, okay, I was feeling good here, and then I got low for a while. It's a lot of red and blue, and sadness and anger, whatever. Not a lot of happy colors. And so that's been kind of helped me regulate, like, okay, I need to pull myself out of this, because sometimes you don't even realize, like, that basically has given me like a indicator of, all right, you're low. And sometimes it like in your mind and stuff, but you kind of psych yourself out of dealing with that emotion. And so that's really helped me a lot through the past year and a half or so. And so I would definitely recommend that if you're someone that journals or whatever it is that you do. Color coding has been super, super helpful for me this past year. So yeah, and it doesn't have to be that, but maybe figure out something for yourself that helps you know and gives you that indicator, a color coordinator, whatever, to help you pull out when you pull yourself out of a rut emotionally. And so, and if you guys have things like that are helpful for you, I would love to hear them. So message me, text me, DM me with those things, and that would be great. And also, whenever y'all just want to send happy videos or things like that, I'm always up for those as well. But yeah, I just wanted to thank y'all again for being with us on this journey. And I'm speaking for myself, but also for Jordan and Gio as well. And, I know that I'm kind of the main person that's on here and, and sending out stuff, but Gio and Jordan are just as important, if not more important, because I couldn't have done it without them. Like, and I don't just mean on screen, but offline and things like that, I wouldn't have been able to do this podcast. And I even mean like if I was doing the podcast by myself the whole time without their support and friendship, I wouldn't have been able to do it alone or with them. So they are just as important to the podcast as myself. And it's why like I really pushed back even about the name before we started. And Jordan was kind of the one that pushed me. I was like, bro, like, let's keep the name. And so, yeah, I just am really appreciative of them. And obviously all the people that I've said before. And I feel like I didn't, and there's a lot of people that have been super helpful. And if I didn't name you, don't feel like I am not including you in that. But even like Karina and being able to talk to her offline, super helpful. And my friend Brianna, who I grew up with and have reconnected with recently, been super grateful to catch up, and her and I need to catch up. So if you're listening, Brianna, we need to catch up. It's been a little minute actually, but she's been super helpful and kind of helping me navigate some things, things she's gone through that are similar to what I've gone through recently. And so I'm super grateful for her. And everybody that's reached out, that's checked on me, but there's definitely a core group of people that I'm super grateful for that have been there in good and bad prior to this last couple of years, but especially these last couple of years. And I wanted to close the episode. I'm sorry, guys. I hope that you guys are with me on this episode and feel me. And I feel like this was just a therapy session for myself, but I really do hope that y'all can take some insights from it. And feel free to reach out if you have any questions, or if you feel like, man, this spoke to me because I'm going through this, or this spoke to me because I'm going through that. And if you're someone that maybe, look, I want to make it clear too that I have a great support system. So when I say, sure, there's a lot of people that, are great friends of mine that I feel like, I wish they had reached out a little bit more when I was going through this. But I have such great friends, such great love, even for people that haven't reached out, because I know life gets busy and we all have our own stuff going on and whatnot. But if you're someone that's sitting there listening to this and you feel like you don't have anyone that you can count on or that you can rely on, that I want to say, people that I know personally, I'm happy to be that for you. And if I don't know you personally, please reach out. And I can't promise you that I can be your best friend, but I'm happy to hear you out if you're going through something, and pray with you, and have you on my prayer list, or try to share any insights that I have maybe that you would like or need or anything like that. But just know you're not alone. And so, I don't want to make it seem like, I can help anyone, but if you have no one, I will at least be someone that you can reach out to and talk to and pray with. Because even though I have a good support system and great friends, there were times this past year and a half where, Satan did make me feel like I'm all alone, like I have no one to talk to. No one cares about what I'm going through. Like those thoughts that I thought I would never really have. I've never been like that type of person, really invaded, my thoughts and my dreams sometimes and emotions. So if you're sitting there and you feel that, one, like, don't be ashamed of that. Don't feel embarrassed, and know that it's okay to feel your emotions and speak them raw and real of what you're feeling. And if you feel like you don't have someone to do that with, I will happily be someone that can at least have a conversation with you and pray with you. So yeah, so I just wanted to throw that out there. And also, like, what I feel like I've done a handful of times over the last few months is that if you're sitting here and you're looking at me and thinking like, Chase, you're someone that I consider a friend, and I feel like you haven't been there for me, please also reach out to tell me that. I know sometimes like people have a hard time saying hard and difficult things. And so I want to give you a soft landing space that if you feel any type of way towards me, the people that I spoke about earlier, if you feel like I'm speaking about you with some of the things that I'm sharing and you feel some type of way, like, we can have a conversation and I'll be as gentle as possible depending on who you are, because I do think there's certain people that if you're listening, it might be hard to be completely like soft place to land because of certain things. But yeah, I will give you a soft place to land if you feel like I have wronged you or haven't been there for you and you consider me a friend. So please reach out and let me know that. And I know for a fact also that there's some people that have reached out that I need to get back to. So also those people, please be patient with me. And you can definitely reach out and let me know if it's hurt you that I haven't got back to you also. So I'm trying to be better at, being a great friend, being there for people when they need me as a friend. And I don't want to say, all these things that have hurt me in the past year and a half. I don't ever want to be that type of person towards someone. So if I have been that, please let me know, because I want to make that change. But I wanted to close out the episode. This is actually longer than I anticipated it being, y'all. So if you're still listening, I don't blame you if you've turned this episode off, but if you're still listening, I appreciate you for hearing my vent session, because I really did think about just walking through like all the episodes we did, and this was the point of this episode and this was the point of this episode. But like I said, it felt like a time where I just needed to not be polished and not have a script and not, try to just smile for the camera and bring you guys just an episode of learning through the scriptures. But this is just raw and real of what my life has been the last year to year and a half or so. And this is like the tip of the iceberg. I'm not going to put the whole iceberg on the podcast, but if any of y'all want to know more, I'm happy to share privately with y'all without gossiping, but just more so what I've been through and what I'm going through. Because I know people have asked me through the year of, hey, like what happened? What's going on? Like, whatever. And I've been, pretty careful of how much I share. And obviously I have my close net of people know everything, but if there's something that you'd like to know, I'm happy to share with anyone that reaches out. But I wanted to close the podcast. It might seem kind of random, but I thought it would be a nice way to end the episode. And I'm not going to like read it. I'm just going to kind of share to the best of my memory. But I was reading recently in Mark 2, I believe, 1 through 12 is the story about the group of friends that, lower their paralyzed friend through the ceiling to Jesus so that he can be healed. And I was thinking about that this week because, we had baptisms at church on Sunday, and a number of people get baptized. And I was thinking about, one, just the depth of baptism, what it means, just the fact that God gives us this ritual, really, right? That connects us. Like he's already gone so far above and beyond what we deserve to connect with us, but then giving us this ritual that just further helps us connect with Jesus, right? Like going under the water and dying to your old self like Jesus died on the cross, and coming up anew like Jesus rose after the third day. Just this deep, amazing connection that it gives us. And, we were talking on Sunday, and I believe it was Brandon that was kind of talking about just this thought about being the people we need to be for the people getting baptized. Like if they need a shoulder to cry on, if they need a word of wisdom, like moving forward in their faith, like after baptism, just to be those people. And I started thinking about that story in Mark 2 of, the friends lowering their paralyzed friend to Jesus and like breaking the roof basically, right? Like digging through the roof of this random home that they don't know, a person they don't know, right? And first and foremost, I wanted to encourage us that, and when I say encourage, I mean to challenge that, because I could do this too, and I think a lot of us can do this. And when I say this, I know that we don't like believe this in our hearts, but in our minds, sometimes I think we read the scriptures like a sitcom. And what I mean by that is I'm going to run with this theme of like breaking through the roof or like a home or whatever. I was thinking back, I think it's honestly, it's been portrayed in several sitcoms, but the one I remember most clearly is, I think, Family Matters. I think it's Steve Urkel, like drives that little, dorky car that he has through the Winslow's wall, if I remember correctly. And then I think it happens in Full House too. Like I think Stephanie is not supposed to be driving. She tries to drive one of the cars and she doesn't know how to drive, and she drives in through the front door or whatever. And so we see that, right? And it's like, oh, it's a sitcom, but the next episode, the Winslow's house is back to normal, right? The I'm forgetting their names, but the Full House family, like their house is back to normal the next episode. But in the scriptures, sometimes I think we skip by these details because we read it like it's a story or fiction, even though we know it's not fiction. We read it like a sitcom where we don't really think about them breaking someone's home, right? But the point is that they were doing whatever it took, no matter the cost. Now, we don't see the aftermath, right? But I would like to think they're like, forget the cost. Like, we'll make sure to pay them or to fix it ourselves or to get it fixed or whatever. But we'll do whatever it takes to get our friend to Jesus, right? And obviously, I'm not telling y'all to go around and vandalizing homes, or whatever. But what I take from that and thinking back to baptism is that I think as Christians, if you're a Christian and you're listening, or even if you're not a Christian, take the principle, even if it doesn't apply to faith or whatever. But first, let me talk to faith, and then I'll kind of try to correlate it to maybe someone who is curious about faith or doesn't believe in God and just is listening to support me as a friend, whatever, I'll try to make it make sense that way too, is that we need to be people that, we're not breaking roofs, but we need to be willing to give of ourselves emotionally, our time, our effort. Like if you're a Christian and you're praying for someone that you really want to become a Christian, I think sometimes whether we want to admit it or not, sometimes we're like, yeah, why wouldn't we pray for those people? But I think there's not all of us, but there's some of us who we don't want to pray because we know the emotion that will bring up and we don't want to be sad. We don't want to be angry towards that person. We don't want to cry, whatever. And I think sacrifice that. Sacrifice your emotion, sacrifice your time, sacrifice your feelings. Be willing to get messy with your feelings and deal with those emotions than to just be like, let's stop praying for XYZ person. And I say that like because on Sunday when we're talking about baptism, we were talking about being there for people and the people that weren't getting baptized that maybe are contemplating in their mind, do I want to become a Christian? Do I want to get baptized? For the people that are getting baptized, like step out of your comfort zone and give them some words of wisdom, or just give them a hug even, or allow them to cry on your shoulder if they're feeling overwhelmed by the weight of, being forgiven of their sins and receiving the gift of the Holy Spirit. That sometimes is overwhelming because we know what we've been saved from. And I think some of us that have been around for a long time, we lose that as time goes on. And so I just wanted to let you or to challenge you to give of yourself. Like those men broke the ceiling and whatever consequences came with that, they took it because they knew they needed to get their friend to Jesus. Allow yourself to feel and pray and be angry or be sad or be hopeful, and you don't know if that hope will be, will come to fruition. Allow that. Go into debt emotionally for people, pray for people. And I think, and I'll kind of end with this. Another lesson that I feel like I've learned this year and a half is that not everybody, and I know I've done this, so I'm saying to myself too, but just a lesson that I feel like I learned a lot over the last year and a half is that there's a lot of people that will speak about the scriptures, that will even preach about the scriptures in some cases, but when rubber meets the road in their own life, they won't follow the things that they preach to you or to others. And so if you're a Christian, I just want to encourage you, and I'm encouraging myself to the best of your ability to, if you're going to teach something to someone, if you're going to preach something to someone, if you're going to study the Bible and ask something of someone, that when that type of situation comes up in your life, that you cannot bypass responsibility or avoid accountability. We talk a lot about David and, his triumphs and then his big defeats, right? And his big defeats are probably worse than anything any of us have ever done. And yet we still say, yeah, but he was still after a man after God's own heart, right? But then when people in your life mess up in small ways or big ways, but there's not many mistakes that people in your life have made that's as big as a mistake of David. And yet we put David on a pedestal. Don't always, unless it's Jesus and God, don't even put, certain people from scriptures on a pedestal and know that they're human just like us. And so if we're going to use their story to preach about redemption and forgiveness or whatever, but then someone in our own lives who hurts us or we hurt someone and you're not willing to forgive, or someone's not willing to forgive you or hear you out or work it out to where even if you go your separate ways, we've hashed out, hey, this is what I feel like you've done wrong, or this is what I've done wrong. And then, okay, we can be done. But we can't act as the world and just say, all right, I'm never going to speak and we're never going to hash out what happened. I'm never going to talk about what happened. And I've had to learn that this year, that there's Christians that are going to say they've handled something spiritually and it wasn't. I'm going to leave it there. But yeah, so I challenge you, if you're a Christian, if you're going to teach, if you're going to preach, if you're going to say that you live by the scriptures, then even if it's hard, even if it's difficult, even if it's uncomfortable, that we have to do it. We're different. We can't just act as the world acts and go to church on Sunday and call ourselves Christians, because if your life isn't distinguishable from your friends at work or people that are out at the club, then why would they come to Christ? if your life is the exact same as theirs, if you handle problems the same way that they do, if you avoid accountability the same way that most people in the world do as well, then why would someone be attracted to your life to come to Christ? And I'm trying to do better with that, but I'm still going to challenge those of you who are listening to do that as well. And like I said a little earlier, even if you're not a Christian or don't believe in God or, don't like God, I kind of highly doubt that you dislike God or don't believe in God if you're listening to this podcast. But, even if you're rocking your faith or you don't trust church or you don't trust God, I still will say that the people in your life that you care about, still be willing, whether it's, maybe you don't pray or maybe, you don't have faith, but be willing to have hard conversations with the people that you love. Be willing to go out of your way to help someone through a difficult situation or to call them out if they're doing something that's harming themselves or others. I don't think those are exclusively Christian values. I think that's just being a good person and being a good friend. So thank you guys for listening to my rant session. This is way longer than I anticipated it being, but I genuinely do love you all. And I mean everything that I say on this episode, especially. And please reach out, if you have an issue with me or if you just want to talk, if you need, a listening ear, a gentle place to land. If something is going on in your life and you need someone to talk to, I will happily be that person. But I love you guys, and like, comment, share, subscribe. Please help us grow in year 2 of the podcast. I'll see you next week. And as Jordan always says, I'm out.